Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome to episode 88 of an ongoing series where we basically take the camera anywhere we want and we try to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. So if you came from the Uncharted 1 episode, you know exactly who helped me out with this one. It's Frico. Frico once again collected all the footage for this episode, and the reason for this is that you need a modded PlayStation 3, which I do not have, so Frico was willing to help me out. The only thing he asked for in exchange was that I show his picture here, so go ahead and just soak this in. Ba-ba-boom. And of course, it would mean a lot to him if you checked out his Last of Us custom levels video after this one. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. You came here for Uncharted 2, right? Well, let's not wait any longer then. The first thing I want to talk about is the main menu, and the main menu is a location from the game, but it's severely cut down. And unlike the area that you'll eventually get to in the game, the area that is made up again for the main menu is encased in a box. The inside of the box seems to have backface culling, so you can only see the textures of the box from the outside. All the wall textures that you see on the inside of the box are housed inside the box, not the box itself. But what made that even more shocking to me was that if we were to add Nathan into the scene, he can still grab and climb all over the walls. And we're not even finished here. If you look behind the statue, you can see a ton of birds. In fact, way more birds that were even used in this intro scene. So when I asked people on Twitter what they wanted to see as a viewer request for the Uncharted 2 episode, you have to imagine how many people asked about the train sequence. And you know what? I don't blame them. It's probably the most memorable sequence for me too. So I'll give you a little bit of a double whammy here. First, we're going to change the perspective of the camera when Nathan's running through the train lobby to get onto the cliffside. And if you pay attention here, you'll notice that the train defies the laws of gravity, as nearly all the weight of the train is already off the cliff before it tips and falls in any sort of way. But you know what? That's what had to be done to pull off that beautiful sequence. And hey, speaking of beauties, let's do a tour of the entire area.
I'm right behind you.
As always.
There's a guy above you, there's a guy above you. There's a guy below.
We're taking a look at the museum area now, and there is one little thing that's funny right off the bat. If we were to follow this guard that Nathan threw off the rooftop, you can get a nice good close-up of him doing a swimming animation. Because, fun little fact, the developers didn't want Drake originally killing the guards in any sort of way.
Yeah, great view. I can see your house. Let's get moving.
Yeah, and what a beautiful view indeed. Let's take a good look at it. The amount of detail that they put into these Uncharted games is unreal. And unlike a lot of games that I cover on the show, I'd say that doing a close-up on some of the backdrops in this game doesn't break as much immersion as you would think. I would say for the amount of distance you have between your character and this town, there's a lot of detail put into things like these cars here. Though I can't really say as much the same for this boat, except there is a little decal on the side that you would never be able to see as the player, as it reads Precision on the side. Alright, in the sewers there's a little bit of an odd design choice. There's always great reasons to do something like this, but it doesn't happen all that often. And what I'm referring to is that the sewer exit has nothing on the other side. However, in the same map, the exit to the sewer does exist. So if we were to mosey on over to this way and then look down the sewer hole, we'd see an entirely different sewer setup, so Nathan can warp to an entirely different area and do it all seamlessly. Alright, check this out. We're gonna look at a volcano today. Volcanoes always seem to be a mixed bag of surprises on Boundary Break.
You never know what you're gonna get.
In most cases, it should be absolutely nothing, but the developers in a lot of games like to fully model the inside, like they do here in Uncharted 2. Granted, there's no lava or anything like that, but there's still a modeled texture down there. And also, let's not forget how tiny the island is in comparison to this volcano. Try to remember that Nathan Drake is down there. And hey, sometimes perspective is everything. If you look at this truck chase segment, panning the camera out shows that what you're running through is pretty much just a track, with only enough buildings on each side to hide the fact that it's only a track. And also, we can't forget that this environment that you're not allowed to get to has very little details modeled outside the player's view. So in this cutscene, you can see the NPCs hiding against the wall before they spring into their intended spots where their animations start to play out. And then after the confrontation, there's supposed to be a bus that runs them down. But where does that bus come from? Well, we can see that it's in a stationary position over here until it's ready to move in the scene. And then past the bus, we can see a Roadrunner wall, aka a flat texture to represent the environment. And when you go there and go back, another Roadrunner wall appears in the previous area. Also in the building collapse segment, if we were to take the camera outside of the building, you might notice that the top floor interior stays exactly where it is. So in this scene, when you start moving from one building to another, you might notice that a helicopter shows up in front of you, it's kind of hard to ignore, and tries to shoot you down. So the question then becomes, where does the helicopter come from? Well, taking the camera outside of its intended track shows that the helicopter spawns in an area that's impossible to be in. As you might have noticed that the tail end of the helicopter was clipped inside of the building. And while we're in this scene, let's do a zoom out of the entire city, which is really impressive, featuring hundreds of buildings before it gets to natural landscape.
You all right?
Whoa. Yeah.
Don't know. Where does Elena go? That's the question we're going to be asking ourselves right now as she walks down these stairs here. Normally she walks behind the building here, and at no point in this scene can you get around to see what happens to her after that. But changing perspectives here, you can see that there's no walls to this building. In fact, it looks a little bit more like a rooftop, if anything. And Elena is just standing in place. She doesn't even disappear, which is much more common for character models when they go out of sight. Yeah, and actually, did anyone notice the helicopter in the background? It's okay if you didn't. We can fix that right now by just bringing the camera right over to it. In some games, and especially in ones that's detailed as Uncharted 2, developers will model pilots inside the cockpits in things like planes or helicopters. And so with that said, here's the pilot of Uncharted 2's helicopter. Oh yeah, the train sequence. By zooming out the camera, you can see the environment, of course, is a lot like it was with the chasing with the truck. But what's far more impressive than that is that the train is fully rendered. And when you see that whole battle area in one shot, you understand how impressive that is. Of course, moving the camera too far away from the intended area is going to start despawning environments. But that's perfectly fine, we can work with that. Since trains move on a track anyway, you can see this thing snaking around the way it would if it was in the environment. And I gotta say, I think my favorite thing out of this entire episode is the train car rolling towards Nathan Drake from another angle. I made sure to have a vanilla shot in the lower left-hand corner for you, as the scene played out normally is pretty impressive on its own. But looking at the scene from a helicopter view only shows just how beautifully put together this part was. Let's do a little bit of a tour of the town in Tibet. And it does have an absolutely lovely view, but we're going to be taking it over to these low poly areas so that you can see what it looks like before you get to the area later to fight the tank. But what's way funnier is that if you're on the top of the mountain and you look down at that same town, instead of making it a longer distance away, they just shrunk down the town and hope you wouldn't notice. In fact, we can use the goofy green character model to show you a size comparison. Nothing about what I'm saying right now is all that common. When you get to this area, you can see a sneak peek of the Guardian. And right away, I gotta apologize. I am gonna bump up the brightness and contrast on this footage because it's so dark. But because it's so dark, it also doesn't look that great when you bump up the brightness. But things are the way they are for the sake of showing you what's going on here. And what I wanted to show you is a viewer request. As always, you can follow me on Twitter to see what the next episode's going to be, as well as drop some suggestions on what you would like to see before I publish the episode. And this person asked, where does the Guardian go when he leaves the shot? And the answer to that is he just steps a little bit backwards into the air and then disappears. Next up is the bridge collapse from Shambhala. As a lot of you who have completed this game know, Nathan has to escape a collapsing bridge. And while that looks absolutely stunning from a normal perspective, checking it out from afar can show you when that precise animation starts to stop, which is entirely because from the player's perspective, it either looks totally fine or can't be seen at all. And of course, we got to close this episode out with a zoom out of Shambhala itself. Hey, thanks for watching the episode, guys. So, if there's just one thing that you do after this episode, please, please, please check out Frico's video. He did a ton of work to make this episode possible, and it would mean a lot to me if you went over there and showed some love. However, if you are new to this channel and you do want to check out some of my stuff, I have a playlist that has all the episodes I've ever done, all just stored away on one giant list. I have a ton of games that I covered, like Uncharted 1, The Last of Us, and many other PlayStation exclusives, but of course I've done a ton of Nintendo as well, but you won't know what I did until you take a look at that list, so go ahead and just click on that and you can see whatever else I have, and you might enjoy yourself. Outside of that, I got not much else going on. I'm going to be doing a collab with Vinesauce Vinny, hopefully. Don't hold me to it. Nothing is set in stone until it's done, so, but that might be a thing, and I'm also supposed to be doing a collaboration with Game Explain, so look forward to that too. Alright guys, I'm going to let you go, and thank you so much again for watching. Take care. Bye now.